Hello and welcome to another Lord Zoom Live Lounge with my friend Mike. And today we are looking at the secret presentations of Zoom. And I'm going to read it to make sure I don't get it wrong. ZoomTopia Technical Connect 2025. And here it is. And well, there it isn't. What happened to it? I thought there was going to be a screen share coming on. There we are. It's there now. That was clever. How did I do that? ZoomTopia Technical Connect 2025. This is, by the way, the EMEA version of it. And the reason I'm showing the EMEA version of it is the EMEA version happened. Oh my God. I think it was this morning. It was this morning from our recording day. So it was Tuesday morning. A week before was the US version. And the US version was the whole caboodle. The EME version was not a lot, a few bits of it. And then everything else was available as a sort of catch up, play on demand. And the reason I'm showing the EMEA is because I know that you can come to this and you can access all the content on demand, and you can also look at some of the demos that are on there as well. But before we get into that, we need to talk about the other elephant in the room, the other problems that we've had this week. And the first one is Zoom disappeared. And Zoom disappeared because the DNS stopped working. We've heard this before. The DNS, the domain name services, stopped working because whenever you look up a website like Zoom, you have to be told where its servers are to connect to. And that's what DNS is about, domain name service. It tells you where the domain name is sitting. And that can be sitting in different places around the world, depending on where you are, which is how Zoom delivers much faster access times to everybody by spreading their servers around the world. Now, Zoom owns and well, owns might not be the word. Zoom controls most of its infrastructure, but it doesn't control its own DNS. And when it had a problem before, it then updated the way its DNS worked. But Mike, I have a feeling when I say updated how their DNS work, they just handed the problem over to Amazon, so Amazon could get attacked, hacked, whatever in the future, and they would have exactly the same problem with all their websites disappearing because DNS didn't work as before. Is that what we think? And by the way, good evening.
Yeah. Hello there. Hello, everybody. So yes, so when it comes to what they have done, they basically had a third-party service that was monitoring their DNS for them. Fine. So that third-party service accidentally made a mistake. And when they did that mistake, that was the infamous DNS problem that Zoom had previously. So they decided in their mighty wisdom to eliminate the third-party service that was doing their DNS monitoring, because they were the ones that were actually doing their best to also not only monitor, but they also were in a bit of a controlling situation because of the fact that what ended up happening there was that their domain names lapsed. So that was more of that type of DNS problem that was happening then. This time around, the domain names are perfectly fine, but what they ended up doing was moving away from this third-party service to bringing it to our friends at AWS, Amazon Web Services. So in their wisdom, they put all their domain names and moved them over from where they were to where they're now DNS server-wise based with Amazon Web Services, but again, they only ended up moving it to the point of where it's now with Amazon Web Services, and their DNS servers need to be up and running 24/7. So for the most part, this is okay. But in this case, if they do have a DNS outage, Amazon themselves, then this affects not only Zoom, of course, which it did, but you saw on the news in all across the world that it affected this service, that service, this app stop working, this medical app stop working. This, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't use Zoom because the domain names again were down. So I know of many people that had to go to our friends at Microsoft as a backup because they still wanted to go to actually still have their meeting with that person. So they had to quickly pivot from Zoom to Teams to save the day. So it put, again, Zoom a bit on there. Yeah, there you go. And now John's actually showing us on share the actual DNS lookup. John, so go ahead and continue.
Okay, so the real simple thing is I've used a product called DNS Tools. I love it. It's a nice, easy way to know what's happening. And I asked it to look up all the domain names for zoom.us. And you can see that there are different servers in different countries. All of Europe is basically looking in the same place, but there are different servers around with different numbers. And these aren't, because this is the server's results. And you can see these are all AWS DNS. These are all AWS DNS servers that are providing the DNS responses for all these places in the world. And that is where the lookup for the servers that would be local to you that would then in Zoom's data center would provide all the services. And you can see they are pretty much reliant on AWS. I hope that at some point down the tree, they have backup servers by another service provider. But even when you do, that tends to be a backup provider that's not going to give you all the throughput that the main service provider. So this is still, quite frankly, this is probably the most fragile part of the internet. It has been for many years, and it probably will be for many more years until the internet gods decide on a more robust service. DNS servers is the most critical bit of a system, and you have to, whenever you go to a website, you have to know where it physically is in the world, and that's what DNS servers are there for you. And if they're not there, then you can't find the servers. The servers can be sitting there waiting for data, but if you can't find out where they are in the internet world, then you can't connect. So this is the most fragile part. A lot of the other companies that had problems had bigger problems than Zoom, because not only were there DNS servers provided by Zoom, by AWS, but the other third-party providers, a lot of their actual servers were running for them on Amazon Web Services. So not only their DNS, but their infrastructure was incapacitated. Not that that makes much difference, because if people can't find the servers, the fact the servers don't work either isn't really going to be a problem. But this is an issue for Zoom, and unfortunately, it's not all Zoom's fault, because you've got to put your telephone exchange somewhere. You've got to put your address book to find all the telephone exchange. And I'm using those features because Zoom doesn't just provide meetings and web services and webinars and all those sort of stuff. It also provides apps, it provides contact center, it provides telephones. And they are even more critical things to keep connected. But as I said, it's not just a problem for Zoom. The internet needs to find a way to make looking up domain names a system that's more robust, so that hackers can't just hit those services and take stuff down, or, as happened before for Zoom, and we don't know what happened this time, somebody doesn't make an update correctly and suddenly all the telephone directories disappear, so nobody knows how to talk to anybody. through Zoom or through whatever your service using. This is a fragile. We are living in a fragile world now. It may sound amazing that we can use all these devices and everything connects, but we're in a very fragile world now. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
and John,
everything
I was
depends
just
on
gonna add,
everything else, doesn't it?
it does, yeah. And I was just gonna add too, John, that it all comes down to because of the fact that we are human beings, and human beings understand words better than numbers, and that is the simplest way of saying it. And everybody might be wondering, Mike, what are you talking about? Well, if I said to you, go to Zoom's website, you're going to type in zoom.com, or you're going to type in Zoom, the word Zoom. But if I told you to go to, an example would be 1.1.1.1, everybody will go, okay, that's pretty cool. I can remember 1.1.1.1, but what is that? Right? So that is Cloudflare's DNS server service. Their marketing is their IP address, right? So again, Zoom,
Except,
yeah, go ahead,
except
John.
that that's based on having 4 sets of digits from 0 to 255, and there aren't enough internet connections from those numbers to connect everything in the world. Especially now we're coming to these idea of all these extra devices in your house all wanting to have their own internet connection. This world of connected technology. And we are going to be switching to a set of numbers that are much longer, aren't they? There's a new
Yeah,
IP6
yeah.
standard, which will be even,
IPv6, yes,
yeah.
correct.
And then you'd have an
So
even bigger number to remember. So we do need, as you say, we do need a telephone directory. So to turn those names into the numbers, but it needs to be much more robust. The simple way to make it robust is you get computers to ask the question, and then if they then remember that answer for ages, and when I say ages, I mean ages in computer terms can be 10 minutes, but quite often DNSs can be remembered for 24 hours or longer. This is why whenever you set up a domain name, you register your domain name, the providers always say, you need to wait at least 24 hours for this change to take place. That's because there's lots of places in the chain who remember what they were asked recently, so they don't have to go and ask it again. And therefore, if there is a small outage, they might further down the tree have remembered what the change was, even though the top of the tree has now been lopped off. Not the best analogy, sorry, but the originator of the numbers, the words into numbers, the domain name service might fail at the top. But if there are copies further down the system, those copies can continue working for a period of time until their rules, whatever their rules are, expire, and they say, "Oh, I haven't asked for a new number recently. I better check with the guy above me if this is still valid or if it's changed." And then they will work their way upwards. The whole DNS system is it, it's look. I'm sorry, I'm a programmer, and considering all the trouble they had to make the internet a system that you could literally chop a cable and the internet would find a way around that cable to get back to, so if there were multiple ways to get from one place to another, it would always try and find those other places. That produced a really robust internet. And then it's all ruined by the name service being a very inflexible and a very fragile system that just breaks. So that's story number one. Zoom, it's still not good enough, guys.
yeah, and the easiest way for them to fix this, John, is to literally, as we were talking off air, uh, is that normally most domain name registrars will offer you the choice of having a primary, a secondary, a tertiary, so a third, and a fourth server. So very easily they could have AWS as their primary still, but have Cloudflare as another one, have Network Solutions, which is the originators of the domain name system in the United States, as a third one. So now you've got 3 or even 4 primary and backup servers at those locations. And you could be doing another technology, which we won't get into too much, which is classified as round robin DNS, which means that automatically every time you actually ask which domain name server it should be listening to or what domain name it should be responding to, it gives you a different result every time. So again, you could actually, so if there is one that drops out very quickly, it actually might go to Cloudflare next time instead of AWS. If AWS is down, or if Cloudflare is down, now you've got AWS.
Yeah.
So now you've got at least 2 of the big guys that they've got severe, robust, server infrastructure, probably even better than Zoom's, that are handling your domain name stuff. So should you even at all with your system, Zoom's actual backhaul system to the internet go down, at least domain names will still be up and running. They just won't be able to point to anything, but at least something will be responding. At least they'll respond that, 404 not found, or you'll get, some sort of internet address of some sort.
Well,
internet error message.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Zoom are producing a more robust system in the background. I'm also reasonably sure we may never find out what it is because I probably wouldn't want them to publicize how they're going to fix this because obviously they need to assure their corporates that they're doing something, but I don't think I'd want it to be in the public domain, so to speak, especially around the phone systems, because it would only give more information to the hackers to find out how they can undermine this system again. But it is a worry. It is a worry. And talking of worries, a wonderful link. Production Studio is wonderful, but it's still not perfect. Last week, I had a customer who was doing a wonderful presentation, and unbeknownst to her, or that's how it was portrayed to me, unbeknownst to her, she was running on battery, not plugged into the mains. And she was there, and then she wasn't. And she disappeared. And her presentation disappeared. So I knew it was her that disappeared and not me that had broken the system. But Production Studio also got very confused because everybody on the slide, the live slide, disappeared because it was her, only her and her presentation. And the Production Studio recording stopped, and so did all the other cloud recordings. There is something in Production Studio that kicked that. And I haven't had time to do it because I've had a lot of other things going on, but I promise you I'm looking into this so I can work out what it is that Production Studio did wrong that then broke all the recordings as well, because it wasn't obvious. And there's something else that Production Studio is not doing very well in the screen sharing world. And I'm going to show you, or maybe I'm not, because the problem is, if I go live now with our next screen share, which I will, it should be slide sharing what we were slide sharing just now, which was the DNS. Can you see anything, Mike?
Not yet.
No, nor can I. All I've done is take that away. So
and officially you're pausing screen sharing.
I know, but pausing screen share should retain what was there before. That's what screen, isn't it? Screen share. So it hasn't. So if I hit the resume button, it then appears. But if I go pause again, you just see nothing because I'm just pausing the machine. And I'll flip round. So I'll flip us back to our two up.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can't show you this because I can't share, because I already know from the preview. That's why I'm looking at the corner of my eye. I can already see from the preview that the preview version of this, what we've just had, the layout we just had, which has now gone to the preview because it swaps the two, is blank again. So if I go live with it, it's blank.
Right.
If I
So
hit
this is what you saw in preview.
yeah, but if I hit the resume from the,
Share.
there it is.
Yeah. Started and it's feeding it now again.
Now I can show you what's going on in a way, because if I bring this down to here, I think you can see that. We're going to have the window in window world now, which is a bit weird, but you can see this because I have the share options with share Zoom as an option. So it's sharing the Zoom windows because Production Studio is a Zoom window. So you can see the two of us are over there, and we're also in the little box here, so to speak. So we're in the two places. So if I swap those two around again, and I have to remember not to press that button, but to press the button over here. If I swap those two around, you can see that the live picture is over here and that's over there. But if I do a pause again, let's see what happens if I do a pause.
Yeah. And again, just for everybody on the video, you're seeing John and I beside each other again in Production Studio.
Yeah. I've done the pause on the video and I go send us live again. And you can see that we can wave our hands around, but our screen shared version is not sharing, is not moving because it's on pause. So it's a screen capture of the last screenshot before I hit the pause button. So the share, which is over there, is not moving. It's stuck. But if I go back to, if I click the send live button again to swap these two versions of the side by side and the side and the up and down and the two up with the screen share.
Yeah.
Now you can't see it because it's on pause, but I can tell you that what's happened is, oh, I can actually, if I do resume. No, it won't, because the resume will then fix it. But what I can see in the screen share preview is a black box. It's gone. If I hit resume to show you what it looks like, of course, it then appears again, and then I can show you. So there's something a little bit wrong
John,
there.
do you have a scene that it's just this share by itself?
No, I don't think. Oh, no. Well, I sort of do, because if I choose that one, we've not got any speakers allocated. So if I just share that with myself, being the screen sharer, I don't make either of us the speaker below.
Right.
That will be that situation.
That'll be easier to show everybody. Yeah, there we go.
So I'm pause share. So we'll wave our hands around and you won't see anything happening on the screen because it's paused. If I resume and we wave our hands around, it then works again. But I wonder what happens then if I stop that share. What will Production Studio do? Because all it's got is the share.
Production Studio died.
Production Studio died. And the big question is, what does anyone see? Because according to the recording, it's still recording. Yeah. According to the recording, it's still recording. And I said that twice because I'm not certain if I believe it. And now we're live again, the two of us side by side. But I'm not sure if recording is recording or not. And so, because I'm insecure, I'm actually going to stop the recording and start the recording again. So there'll be a gap. We'll be right back after this. Restart the recording. Okay, so we are recording again, and hopefully when I look at that other recording, that we are recording is going to be, message is going to be at the end. If it isn't at the end, then the recording stopped before when Production Studio had nothing to show. But at least it didn't crash. But of course, the ultimate would have been for me to have just disconnected myself. But I don't want to break this particular presentation today because we did want to have a look at some other things. So let's see what I've ruined now. Okay. So if I start a share up again, I will share my screen too. I will also share Zoom windows so we can put the Zoom windows over because there it is. Because I'm going to pick up this Production Studio window and move it out of the way. And underneath I have, and this is a Zoom window. That's why I need to make a Zoom window. This is the Zoom production studio. What's that in that corner there? There's something in the way there. Oh, that's okay. Let's get rid of that. This is the Zoom Technical Contact MEA. And you can see that we have, this is the lobby. The whole event is over, but it's running.
John, we're not seeing the share.
We're not seeing the share. Good point. There we are. You can see the share now?
Again,
Wonderful.
back to you.
Thank you very much. So this is, well, I've seen it twice, but this is the first time for you. This is the ZoomTopia Technical EMEA version, and we're clicked on lobby at the top there. And from the lobby, we can see the feature sessions and the extra sessions from the technical presentation. We can also go into the sessions and we just get a whole list of sessions, which again, we can watch the recordings of. Although some of these don't seem to have the recording running at the moment, which is very weird, and I'm not sure why. We'll have a look at that in a second. We can look at the name of the speakers, and we can also look at the demos. And there's some good 5-minute demos in here as well. I will work out some sort of link to put in the video for you to find these. These are very good. And I suppose the first question I have to ask is, Mike,
Yes.
why did we have a ZoomTopia Technical Connect conference that was completely separate to a ZoomTopia conference?
Well, from my understanding from Zoom's point of view, is that ZoomTopia was more an overview of how they did over the year. So it was more of a, let's say as it is what it is. It was more for the shareholder. It was more of a shareholder event.
Yeah.
Where they basically explained things that they did, partnerships they are with, and what they're going to be doing this year.
I think that's a good way of doing it. Yeah.
High technical level or non-technical level.
Yeah. So it was a CEO to CEO conversation and a CEO to shareholder conversation. So the CEOs of the corporates that are signed up to Zoom could see what Zoom was doing, CEO to CEO, boss to boss. Technical information is buried underneath, and we're going to talk about all the flowery bits about what we're doing and how wonderful the world is and how Zoom can make things great for you. Yeah, I think that's a very good summation.
And just dabble into tech, because we are tech, being Zoom, speaking of Zoom, as Zoom, we are tech, but we don't want to alienate that end of the market where now Zoom officially alienated our end of the market. So the technical content connect, which I didn't even know about the event until John told me about it, which is another problem John will be talking about here momentarily. But that this event was actually done for supposedly us technical people. So the reason I say supposedly is that I have not actually had a chance to watch any of the keynote that John had seen in EMEA, because again, the North American event, as John told you, was last week. Last week, John? Is that right? So I didn't even know about it. And John said to me, "Oh, didn't you go? Go where? Go to what?" And I said, "Oh, there was a ZoomTopia technical event." And I'm like, considering John and my involvement with Zoom, that I didn't even hear about it even a little bit, was very confusing to me. Back to you, John.
Yes. Zoom has a beautiful problem. It's too big. It's doing too much. It's got so many things now in the Zoom workplace that ZoomTopia has given up trying to explain it all to everybody. And this is supposed to be a technical event for the technical people. That's how it was described to me. ZoomTopia Technical Connect is to connect technically with the technical people. And what's funny is the way you describe ZoomTopia, it almost did that in the technical event, in the fact that it's very shallow technical event. It's introducing all the technical things, but it's not really going into a lot of detail. It's good if you want to find out what's available, but although it's a technical event, I don't think it goes into a lot of detail because you can't do a technical event and be technically detailed and exact if you're only going to give 25 minutes, 30 minutes to a presentation. Because by the time they've introduced themselves and they left a bit of time for the questions at the end, there's no time to do anything. We have a third event that happens in Zoom, and that's the Zoom developers event where they get the Zoom developers again together. Most of the technical presentations in the Zoom developers, they just go through 10, 15 lines of code, explain how those 15 lines of code work, and leave all the rest of it out. So this is, well, it's good news for me because I can run now lots of events explaining all these things, but it's not a very easy job now for Zoom, all its different products and all its different positions to explain all its things. And it's probably got a communication problem with how it's going to do this. I haven't got an answer, but this technical event did go over a lot of things. We have going down the feature sessions. You've got the keynote at the beginning, the keynote at the end. We've got a couple of major things, which is talking about the infrastructure of Zoom. So just trying to get people to understand how the infrastructure works at a corporate level. So the corporates will be secure in knowing how all these bits work together. And then talking very much about their integration with Microsoft, which is getting pretty good now. And then we've got some sessions. We've got a contact center lab where they showed how contact center worked. Contact center is a really powerful product. They talked about Zoom Phone, again, another really powerful product. And gosh, do they need to make that more resilient? If DNS breaks that, that's not good. You've got the Zoom Space Lab. No, Zoom don't go into space yet. But it's about Zoom rooms and how you can power Zoom rooms. Because there's a lot of toys now that you can use to run Zoom rooms. And especially there's a lot of infrastructure partners. And the big difference between this technical presentation and a lot of others I've seen is there was a lot of emphasis on the third parties that they were working with and bringing the third parties in, making the Zoomiverse even bigger, but adding all these third parties. And the last one in this section was custom agents, which, well, the way AI is moving and the way all this integration is moving, I don't think we've even scratched the surface of what our agents can do yet. But I think this is the 12 months. We're probably in that way in the 12 months of when that's really starting to take off. We can, and we've talked about before, all the AI functions that we can use within Zoom events to help us build Zoom events and also how to analyze data after Zoom events. But what's really interesting about this ZoomTopia Connect conference is all the sessions that they ran. And you can, if you look down the list of the sessions, you find things I've not talked about. So the intro and the keynotes there, and the global thing, and the Zoom Content Center lab is there. But further down, there's a how to use custom agents to integrate into your systems. There's a presentation here on how they can run 1 million person Zoom events, how they work and how that works, give you an idea of what the infrastructure they use to put that together, give you a bit of confidence I'm looking forward to my 1 million event at some time soon. How we deploy in the enterprise world, and then they talked about their, and I'm going to, you tend to forget all the names of all these products after a while, but things like Zoom Mesh, and they've got two infrastructure products that work well in a corporate environment. One allows you to bring all your Zoom event down into the building, into one server in the building, and then hand it out throughout your network. So you don't have 500 people in a corporate building all trying to watch the same webinar and all filling up the internet connection for that corporate with all those attempts to try and I say attempts because it will probably fall over if everybody in the staff tries to watch a video at the same time. I don't think many corporate networks are going to be set up to allow everybody to watch videos at the same time. The option therefore is to bring the Zoom webinar to a machine or machines in the corporate building and then to share the videos inside the corporate network, which obviously has much more bandwidth than the connection to the internet outside. And so they talked about the various technologies that allow that to happen and to allow effectively on-prem services which never go out to the internet and how they control that and what's available. There is another product as well as Zoom Mesh, but I forget the name of it off the top of my head. There's also a lot about Zoom management and how you manage all this because it's quite a nightmare, and even in the developers area we have problems, and we have in the customer Zoom community we get problems which are due to the admins not giving the right powers and responsibilities to people further down the tree, so they think they've got services that they haven't actually been enabled for their use. That's very important to learn. And also, we've also got these demos. And as you can see, there are lots of demos here. And these are really good stuff. If you want to find out what's going on and you want to see some of the basics information about Zoom, these demos are really quite neat. But they're only like 5 or 6 minutes. A lot of them, well, actually, there's a lot of them even less than 5 minutes. This Zoom AI Companion Knowledge Base is a 2-minute video. These are all nice short videos, quickly explaining an overview of a particular product so that then you can dig deeper.
John, I'm curious,
Yeah.
were they live demos?
Well, not for me because I was working the EMEA, but I believe a good number of them seem to be live in the American version, but there were a few that suspiciously looked like that they were semi-live or completely recorded. Zoom at the moment doesn't seem to how do you put this politely? Zoom doesn't seem to be in the mood at the moment to give away when they're recorded or they're not recorded. Maybe this will change. Personally, I hate people doing that. I know what their reason is. Their reason is the stupid reason from a couple of years ago. Oh, I don't want anyone to know it's pre-recorded because everybody else lies, and I'm going to lie as well because if they find it's pre-recorded, they're going to think I don't care. Well, I think that's a stupid thing to do, personally, and the reason for that is you lose confidence in a company that blatantly lies about stuff being recorded or pre-recorded. You gain trust when you admit that it's pre-recorded, because there can be many reasons why it's pre-recorded. And if it is pre-recorded and there are still people there asking the Q&A and asking the chat, it's not like they're watching a video because other people are there interacting. And if they are honest about it, aren't you showing off a feature of Zoom that Zoom can mix recorded and pre-recorded and real-time interaction into the same system at once? Surely to me that's an advantage of Zoom. It's an advantage of Zoom. It's an advantage of Zoom for me as a producer. I can do presentations. I mean, we're doing this real life, but we do recordings that demonstrate things we can't do perhaps in real time. Or you do a recording of something because you're doing it over and over again and you don't want to get your mind just blown away with the repeat of the same thing week after week. So you might pre-record a bit of content because you're repeating it every month and it doesn't go out of date. So you just pre-record it. But you make an advantage of that because you say, this is the presentation I did last week. Nothing's changed. But if you want to put chat in the chat box or you want to put a question in the Q&A box, I will be interacting with that content while the other half of me, the recorded version of me, is doing the presentation. That to me is an advantage. It's also an advantage when the recording gets to the end and you've read all the Q&A and you've read all the chat, you don't have that, well, thank you very much for that presentation, hesitation minutes while they're now trying to catch up on the chat, because you pre-recorded that bit. So make it an advantage. I've pre-recorded that bit, and when the recording finishes, I'm back live just like that, because I've already had a look at the chat. I've already had a look at the information, and I can tell you what's there. And I've answered a few questions, and I'm now going to talk to you about what all the interaction in the chat is and share it with everybody so everybody knows the answers, etc., etc. I don't see the problem in letting people know what's real and what's not. And then when it's on demand, it's on demand. And when it's rerun, it's rerun. But it's going to be a hobby horse of mine, I think, for a few years before we can persuade Zoom to be more open. I find it an advantage, especially when competition to Zoom, and what I mean by is customers using the Zoom platform in competition with other people who are not using the Zoom platform and are just blatantly playing pre-recorded videos and pre-recorded chats and pre-recorded interactions, and there's nobody there whatsoever from that company. Compare that to what most people do on the Zoom platform, when it might be pre-recorded content, but there are people there and you can run polls and you can run chat live. That has to be a better product. So Zoom's customers should have a much better advantage in what they are delivering through Zoom than those that aren't. And if that is true, Zoom, why not just admit what's going on, because it is an advantage for you against the rest of the marketplace and for your customers against their marketplaces. I will step off my hobby horse and let's just go through some of these different demos to give you an idea what they are. Now, I know we have this famous thing of telling you that everything in Zoom is a web page and you output it like a web page. That's how they do it. And this is, in fact, as far as I'm concerned, a web page. In fact, it is, because under my Zoom developers tools, I can actually inspect the web page like it would be a web page. Unfortunately, unlike a web page, I don't seem to be able to do the zoom in and zoom out. I can't zoom in Zoom, so I can't make all these boxes look bigger. But we have, this is a neat one. Who's heard of Zoom's video kiosk? Hands up. Not a lot of you. No. Well, here's 2 minutes and 50 seconds, all about Zoom's video kiosk. And I think I could probably play it. I think the audio is going to work. Lovely intro.
In this part of the demo, we're going to show how a Zoom Room device can be provisioned as a kiosk. And this kiosk is, in our case, is going to be positioned in a private meeting room for consumers to interact with.
So could you hear that all right? Yeah, okay. Zoom Kiosk is effectively a Zoom Room app, like the controller that's outside the app, or a Zoom display, one of those display walls where you have something. That's what a kiosk is. It's basically a place, it's a Zoom terminal sitting there which you can then interact with. So maybe you have it in reception so that people can go in and log into it or connect to it and find out where they want to go, or call receptionist or whatever. That's what a Zoom kiosk. But there is a nice 2-minute example of that. They've got all these lovely things. They've got lovely things about customer experience, which is all to do with contact center, self-service using WhatsApp. Who knew you could use WhatsApp in Zoom? Well, you can. Contact center is part of it. And here's a 1 minute 46-second overview of that with a lovely intro again.
Michael is working on a new loan application and has some questions about his loan. He sends a message to Zoomly Financial on WhatsApp. Zoom Virtual Agent responds, and Michael then asks a question about uploading proof of income that's required for the loan application. Michael isn't sure what documents he can use to fulfill that requirement. Zoom Virtual Agent will respond with an answer from the knowledge base system.
How many of you knew that Zoom works in WhatsApp? I'm not trying to make you feel guilty that you don't know about all these things that Zoom does. I'm trying to tell you that I think this was fantastic and gives lots of little bits about Zoom that are really interesting. And as I have a contact center license and I'm trying to make use of it, these sort of things are really inspiring. There's some things further along about Zoom Events. Zoom Events Cloud Production Studio, which we are using at this moment in time. There's a little video about that one. Another 3 minutes and 1 second of content.
So let's go into the in-event experience. I'm going to show you Cloud Production Studio. This allows you to mix your sessions with custom layouts, backgrounds, and media. You can produce a professional broadcast natively within the Zoom app. So now you can see that I've launched into a Zoom Events lobby. I have sessions in progress that I can click.
Wonderful. So there is a 3-minute overview explaining how Zoom Production Studio works. These are great.
And it just so happens, John, that's one of our friends from the Zoom Test Kitchen community.
I recognize that, and I recognize that voice when it came through. Yeah, wasn't who I thought it was going to be, but it was one of our friends.
Yeah,
Here's a
and
Zoom-
also, yeah, and also the person that was actually on video as well.
Yeah. Here's a Zoom Events page builder. Wonder which of our friends is going to be doing this one.
Here's an example of a web page I've created
same
with Zoom
again.
Events and sessions. I'm able to customize the entire look of the page.
So this
in
is
a
explaining how you edit the page for Zoom Events. Zoom Events has a page builder. Yes, I know. There are so many page builders for so many different things nowadays. It does get a little bit frustrating. There should be a page builder standard somewhere. Somebody needs to invent a page builder standard for everything. But there is a page builder in Zoom Events to make the page look nice, just like there's a email builder for most of the emails, not all of them yet, but for most of the emails that are in events that you can send. All these lovely little things here. So we've got what? 5 by 4, 25, 27, I think. I think I made that maths very quickly. Little demos here that you can go and watch and get an overview on how things work or how Zoom thinks they worked. As I said, the sessions are up there as well. I'm not sure if there are more in the US version. I don't think there are. But this is ZoomTopia Technical Connect. And as I heard one Zoomie say, I won't quote their name because they probably wouldn't want me to blatantly pull them out as an example, but this should have been promoted at ZoomTopia. I don't think it's just Mike that said it. I don't think it's just the outside world that said it. A lot of Zoomies have said it as well, that this should have been promoted at ZoomTopia. This is one of the reasons why we were disappointed in ZoomTopia, because it didn't go beyond the shareholders and the big vision, which is why we were disappointed. Also, the production values were rather poor as well, but that's how people use Zoom, not how Zoom works.
And that's also another video that you can see on here on our YouTube channel.
Yes. The content of how things work is ZoomTopia. So this is the next level down, and it would have been nice to have it as part of ZoomTopia, or at least linked to ZoomTopia so people knew about it. Because this was run by all the technical guys. So there's probably a hole in the middle between the two. But at least we've got two different views now of what Zoom was doing, and I don't know when they're going to do it again. There was a suggestion.
John, I'm curious, how long was it been since Zoomtopia that this event actually happened?
Month? 6 weeks?
See, that's also a problem for me. This easily should have been done, if not maybe the following day. That's ideal. But again, this should have been done within a week of the main Zoomtopia event, not a month. Zoomtopia is done for this year at that particular point. It's too far.
Yeah.
This should have been called something else instead and not been referencing Zoomtopia at all at this point.
When you have your own events platform, and then you create your own events hub, and then you create your own content management system, This is all a fantastic way to get corporates to work together and use the stuff. But it doesn't replace social media. It doesn't replace content in LinkedIn. It doesn't replace content out on Zoom. They are the biggest platform for getting corporate information out to corporates. It doesn't replace them. Zoom hubs are not turning up on Google searches. I'm not sure why they shouldn't, because technically they should. Maybe I will investigate that sometime.
If
But-
they aren't, John, I would think that Zoom is blocking that. And that they're making sure that the Google crawlers or any of the internet crawlers are not grabbing content, which would make a lot of sense because, again, Zoom would have to then cherry pick who they allow that to be broken through, right? And if everybody doesn't have, because it would be based on domain. So if it was events.zoom.us, no. But if you had your own vanity domain, like lordzoom.events.us, then they might be able to punch that through. If you wanted your hub to be searchable.
I don't think Zoom hide hubs. But I will have to do a whole SEO audit to come to a real conclusion on that. There is nothing.
Because John, we might not see it at the web server level. It might be even at their corporate, at the CDN firewall level, right? Where the crawler is coming into the data center and it's told to get lost.
Yeah, but I can create a search engine bot which will tell me what Google sees. So that's a very good question, and I will dedicate a new. That will give me an episode to do, and we will have a look at that. But
that would be the way to test to see if it's actually being blocked or not, and if it is being blocked, I can understand why. But if it's not being blocked, then why is Google not caring? At least Google themselves on search engine wise. I'm going to stick with right now that they are doing it on purpose, but I'd rather John prove it to us. So.
Okay. Well, I can't do that this moment because I don't have enough tools loaded to be able to do that. But yeah, that is a very good question. That is a very good question. So thank you, Zoom, for ZoomTopia. I'm happier about ZoomTopia now I've seen ZoomTopia Technical Connect. So that made me feel better. But the two needed to be together and they needed to be bouncing off each other, and they really needed to be connected much more officially so people knew who they were. It's
right.
Yeah, it's
and again that easily could have been done at the regular ZoomTopia too. Is don't forget to join us next week at ZoomTopia Technical Connect 2025 for a more technical, in-depth. I could even write the whole speech as I'm saying it to you.
And I actually had some people that said to me, we don't know why they didn't mention it at ZoomTopia. We thought they would. So marketing probably need to pull two people together from the two different organizations that are running the two different things and get that sorted, because it's a shame, because it's good content. And if people can't find it, then they won't watch it. And there were thousands of people on ZoomTopia, and I don't believe they were all shareholders and CEOs. I'm sure there was some normal people using Zoom.
Oh yeah,
normally.
absolutely. I can for sure vouch for you that during the keynote that everybody was wondering when John Baptiste was going to be performing. and they were there more to see John perform than they were there necessarily to watch what Zoom had to say. So,
Well, it was a cool move of Zoom to bring in somebody like that to bring the people. But if you bring the people to the show, you've got to show them something that you want them to see, and that doesn't mean a shareholders meeting. So yeah, yeah, I think it was as good as any other corporates. I mean, even Apple doesn't really go to any depth on their conferences.
no, they purposely will do, their own developer conference as well.
Yeah.
But they always say at their main Apple product launch conference, or shareholder ones, that, coming up in X, if it's going to be a few months away, coming up X, you're going to have, the Apple developer conference, or even Google does it as well, where they have their own corporate based shareholder type high level stuff, but they also have, their developer conference as well. So in Zoom's world, they actually have three. In Google's world, they really only have two. Apple's world, they only have two. You're either using their service or you're developing for their service. In Zoom's case, where you got the users, you got the techies that have to make sure that the users can do what they need to do. And then you've got your developers that have been allowed to technically develop so they can have their own users use in conjunction with Zoom.
Yeah, that's a good description. Because although they are clever, Apple products don't really need to explain themselves to the level that Zoom needs to explain itself when it's saying, look, this is contact center, and this is what you can do with contact center. This is the phone, and this is what you can do with the phone. This is Zoom Docs, and what you can do in Zoom Docs. And now the products I leave out are going to feel left out, aren't they? So I'm going to have to go through all of them, and I'm going to miss some. This is Zoom's schedule, and this is how Zoom schedule works. And this is Zoom Hub. And this is the other version of Zoom Hub, because of course we've got two. We've got your local one. We've got the one connected to your events. This is Zoom Webinars. This is Zoom Webinars Plus. This is Zoom Meetings. This is how large your meetings are. I'm going to miss a load out. So I'm just going to give up and say I'm going to miss a load out. Zoom Webinars, by the way. I'm going to miss a load out, and I'm sorry. I can't mention them all. But it is a good reason why Zoom could do with 3 events. This is Zoom and how it works. These are the Zoom products, and this is how they works. And for those techie people who want to build stuff with Zoom, we've got our own event for you guys as well. I think the 3 events is great, but as you said, I totally agree with you. They've got to connect. They've got to name drop each other so they work as a triangle and not as 3 completely separate events trying to push their ways in the world. But Zoom
and come across like they don't care about each other, which they should.
Yeah, Zoom does care. It's just hard sometimes when you're a big organization to get the message across. And this is more or less the first year. I don't think I saw Zoom Technical Connect last year. I think this is the first year that Zoom Technical Connect has joined the family.
Yeah.
And yeah, marketing.
I think again, our expectations from last year's Zoomtopia was that it was a little more technical, but I have this feeling they might have got feedback that it was too technical and pushed away the audience that they're trying to do this year. So
yeah, you can't please everybody all the time. So break it up to 3 bits, and then the 3 different groups of people can go to the shows that they like the best. And you can, of course, just come back here week after week, every week. I am those that noticed. I have some boxes here because I'm actually in the process of packing up to move to a new premises. Can't tell you what the new premises is because I haven't signed the contracts yet, but I'm working hard to attain new premises. Give me some more space. Although there is something quite funky about owning your own 40-foot container and taking a trip out to it, and you've got all these shelves full of cables and connectors and green screens, and it's amazing how much oh, I can't insult it. How much technology and infrastructure you can acquire when you build events for people and yourself. It's amazing how many cables you can find. In the old days, engineers would always laugh about the fact that they had, 300 kettle leads left over from PCs that had died, and they'd kept them all because they're all different lengths and sizes and fitments. And the kettle leads is what we call the ones that come out of the power supply for most PCs, just in case there's an internationalization problem with not knowing what a kettle lead is. But I've got a sizable box. I've probably got 30 or 40 kettle leads in a box, and they are different lengths, and you tend to just grab one and put one in, and then when you're getting fussy, you then go and find one the right length so that it fits perfectly and you've got no lag. And I've got network cables of every size and every color you can ever think of, and USB cables of all the different flavors and varieties, all different sizes and converters. Oh, it's amazing how quickly you can fill up a 40-foot container with just bits and bobs to do with the internet. However, it after a while, it does start to get a bit annoying that you have to drive off to go and get a cable and then come back. So we are planning on moving. We hope it will all be finished by Christmas, although that's only 2.5 months away. So that now seems very short. But we are working on moving to a new premises, give us some more space, give us some better tech, give us somewhere to put our cables that's closer than a 40-foot container and easy to get to, etc., etc. So we are moving on and working with and talking to the guys at Zoom. I'm probably going to do more things on the platform, and I'm probably going to put more things into YouTube. And as we are now learning more and more about making Production Studio secure, the nice thing about Production Studio is you can send the Production Studio feed to the YouTube. So they get to see exactly what you see in the room on the stage of the webinar. And that is a big jump up in service to YouTube and any other platform, maybe LinkedIn, any other platform you stream to. That is a big jump. And I did this weekend because I was concerned about Production Studio crashing and losing my recording. I actually did a person on stage who was not a co-host, was just a normal speaker on stage. And I did a local recording, and I was able to pin the extra person in the room, because there are 3 of us in the room. There is Mike, there is myself, and there is PS. There is a identity called Production Studio in the room at the moment. And I was able to pin Production Studio onto that user's screen, which meant they recorded exactly what Production Studio showed. So I got a duplicate of Production Studio stored locally. But as Mike found out earlier this evening, when we started this recording, if you're a co-host, you can't pin Production Studio to your screen. You get forced to go and watch everything. And you don't have that control. And yes, I haven't forgotten that if I was playing a video in Production Studio, I would have 2 more people turn up who would be the bots running the video for me. So for those that are too clever for their own good, mentioning that, I do know there are extra people that turn up at those places. And I need to change his shirt because it's so itchy. I don't know what's happened to it today. It's really annoying me, but never mind. I've survived till the end. And here we are. Please look in the comments for the link to Zoom. I have had a look with Google search for ZoomTopia. And there is a link to that. So if you look for Zoom, ZoomTopia is a domain name that Zoom own. So there is a connection to that through that domain name. but I haven't been able to find a way to give you a quick URL to ZoomTopia Technical Connect, which makes Mike a bit confident that you can't Google it, of course, doesn't it?
We shall see.
We will find out. But at this moment in time, there is no separate URL that I'm aware of on Google search that I can find to do that. So thank you, Mike, for your time again today. Thank you,
John.
everybody, for listening, watching, and viewing. And we'll see you back on the next one.
And John,
yes,
are you doing your event tomorrow, sir?
I don't actually know what I'm doing tomorrow, but I am recording a Zoom developers. And he had the stinger ready, so that's why obviously he wanted me to say that. I am recording a Zoom developers lab tomorrow, and it will probably be on the internet within a few days. However, I will probably, I now have been given an extra event domain, so I can actually run Zoom events on a separate Zoom events platform, so it can have its own developer platform. So we're going to try that for the next 4 or 5 months and see what the difference that is. And I'm also thinking that, again, like Zoom, I don't want to confuse people with the wrong videos and wrong content. So I'm probably going to move all of my Zoom developer recordings into a separate YouTube channel than the Lord. So Lord Zoom Live will be on one channel and the Lord Zoom developers will be on a separate channel. I also believe that YouTube now allows you to share videos across YouTube channels. The one that uploaded gets all the, how you put it, all the hits and all the statistics and all the advertising goes back to the originator's channel. But you can, I believe, according to a YouTube guru that I saw a couple of weeks ago, you can share that content across multiple domains or multiple channels, shall we say, that you have to promote it. But as I said, it's the one that uploaded it is the one that gets all the stats and gets all the advertising revenue and on all the glory coming to it. But that would allow me then to put the two together and also have them separate. So that's what we're going to work on. That's our challenge for the next quarter. And I expect in January we'll sit down and scratch our heads and see how well that worked, and we'll work out what we'll do next and share with you the results in both directions. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. So thank you for the last time, Mike Latter.
Thank you, sir. Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. And now I have to find the end webinar for attendees, and then I have to hit the confirmation button because Zoom is never quite sure if you click the right